Well, greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Del Barzi. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe, leave us a comment, and let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. Today, I'm very, very pleased to welcome Bre Loughlin out of Wisconsin. Bree is a nurse with over 20 years experience. She's an entrepreneur. She's the founder and CEO of Nurse Disrupted. And I guess she's going to tell us more about that. She's a global health IT expert, a national speaker. And she says national. I say international because I see that you've spoken in Turkey and England, wherever. So welcome, Bree, and thank you.
I am so glad to be here, Dale. Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So tell me firstly, why are you a nurse?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Back in college, I actually was a biology major for my first couple of years. And when I was thinking about the work that I wanted to do, it did come down to wanting to do work that was very interactive with people. I also was considering, I knew I was going to be changing majors. I was considering computer science as well, because I do have a love for technology. But when I decided to go into nursing, two things. I'm a University of Washington graduate, and the nursing school at the time was the #1 nursing school in the nation. I'm a very competitive person. And I was like, well, that sounds great to me. Let's go try it. Let's try and get in. And it's funny because the counselors at the time at UW would try and talk you out of it. Like,
Yeah.
people don't get accepted and don't, put everything on the line to this. But it was a fantastic program at UW. And when I really thought about, is it going to be nursing or is it going to be computer science? I thought about the human interaction. I thought about the ability to impact people for the better. And that was the turning point for me to put my card in the hat and see if I couldn't get into that school. And I'm so glad I did. It's a great program. Yeah, it was that I wanted to work with people and I wanted to do something that would have a tangible impact on humans.
So here's my question. You were tossing up between nursing and computer science. At that time, did you have any idea that you'd be able to merge the two?
No, I didn't think about it, I didn't think about it. And I really love more nursing programs are reaching out and integrating technology into undergraduate and graduate programs. And UW, that is true. They have a digital health innovation hub. I have a great relationship with them because they are really saying, okay, infusing technology and innovation in all aspects of nursing. And I have more deans of schools of nursing reaching out and saying, yes, we are including innovation and technology as part of standard nursing programs. But no, when I made the decision, I thought it was either or. I think that I was going to go into computers or software. I was going to go into patient care.
Yeah, there's so much of that with nursing, though, that you're kind of like, oh, I would like to. Most people have one or two things that they think they're drawn to. And then what I notice about nursing is that when you start with nursing, you really can pull the other thing right into it very seamlessly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, well, and you think about everything that we do. I mean, I always come back to running a code. Nurses are very good. You walk into a room, you scan the room of what needs to happen, and then you start prioritizing the decisions that you make. And that's a very good at, or that prepares us for business.
Yeah.
It prepares us for, quickly visualizing how to solve problems. There are so many things in our skill set that position us to be unique. And then also, I mean, everyone now is trying to develop for nurses. Everyone is just thinking of products that they can create for us because of how, we are delivering the most patient care, and there are more of us than any other healthcare provider. But the technology must be designed by nurses. People don't, like you were saying, people do not know our practice. They're designing technologies that aren't made for us. And when that happens, the technology winds up being a burden for us instead of something that could elevate the human condition and help our workday. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the two need to be together.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. So here you are, very competitive, you said. You wanted to get into the best nursing school in the nation, and you did. But what were the challenges for you?
Oh, well, where do you start? I mean, that's, um, I think things to know about me is I got my own apartment when I was 16. I didn't come from, a legacy family where, people could help me understand what it was like to graduate from college. There's a handful of people on both sides of my family who did.
Mm,
Um, you know, I, so I, God, where do you start with the barriers? It's like, I just remember working, night shift at a Greasy Spoon and going to high school, and people weren't envisioning greatness for me. I had to
mhm,
envision it for myself. I had to
mhm,
find that way to say, I want to do something incredible, and to figure out it's not that I didn't have, nights with depths of despair, and I still do. It's just like,
mhm.
oh, how am I going to do this? And plenty of tears cried and saying, I don't know how to do it, but then pulling myself up by the bootstraps and saying, well, you're going to figure it out. And I wound up going then to community college and getting my associates before then getting
Yeah,
into UW. That was a great path. It was a great financial path too, to be able to
yeah,
pay for an associate's degree before going into a bachelor's degree. Um, I was a working student. I just had to
yeah.
say, well, I'm going to figure this out, and go in the program. And other people had different stories than I did, but saying, hey, I belong here and this is where I want to be. I think that was the first thing. I think we have to talk transparently about, the difference between being a man and a woman in ambition, and the way that
Mhm.
the world sees you and the way that you can navigate that. I think the more that we
Yeah,
freely talk about that, like the more we can maybe lay a pathway that's a little bit different.
yeah,
Um, but
indeed.
I would say just, it was not a traditional path, and people weren't just gonna, expect excellence out of me. I had to expect it out of myself.
You had exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You had to make them see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Does that
get that.
answer, does that, does that work for your question? Does that, or
Yes,
you?
it absolutely does. It absolutely does. Because I know there are challenges with everything, no matter what you do. But many of us, and the reason I typically ask people about the challenges, because many of us come in, I think, come into the profession without a clear idea or without knowing um what it is that's expected of us, regardless of what we've been taught in school. We get there and it's totally a different thing. And then is when the challenges really start. Since school, you expect to be challenged.
Right,
Um, but
right.
once you've gotten past that, some of the things that you see that come at you are not the challenges you expected.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I'm sure you and I can tell stories about our practice too all day long. I mean, I would say, when I was a student at UW, agreed, like, you have professors, with also a message of excellence. And then you get your first nursing job, right? And you find, quickly that some people really try and lay out a hierarchy, right?
Mhm.
The first one being the position of, physicians over nurses. I
Yeah,
didn't understand that when I went into the practice. I understood, I've always said, physicians are the composers of healthcare, but nurses are the conductors. Like, we
yeah,
look at every piece and make things happen. And, it's an excellent science with a deep history. But as a new nurse, you see, and I found that this is true of business too, but at first you go in with nursing and you say, okay, people are trying to create this professional hierarchy. How do I navigate my practice? There's always been a nursing shortage. So, the practice where you don't get a break, you don't get to, eat
mhm,
or restroom, that's
yeah.
something where, um, I did wind up in 2006, and I've written about this. I burned out. Like, I got to the place where I drove up to my hospital and I couldn't open the door.
Open. Mhm.
Um, and at the time we weren't allowed to talk about burnout, really. I mean, it's like, what, are you not tough enough? Are you not good enough? Are you, not, what is it
Yeah.
that's wrong with you? Instead of, looking at these stories that some of us are just starting to share, and maybe this is what you're opening up in people, where it's like, I had, this 14-year-old girl who was mentally disabled and impregnated by her uncle, and she was scared, and it was navigating the family, or, this other woman who was a bariatric patient, and she needed to be cleaned up, and there was no one there to help. And so at the expense of my back and my health, I cleaned her. I couldn't leave her, but it would take me months physically to recover after that. And, I tell these stories now because they became the foundation and the building blocks for my career, instead of, when I had that darkest moment. And I still get choked up when I think about it. It's so interesting. I do. But I let myself go back there because it became the building blocks of saying, how can we make a better path for our profession? How can we take these lessons learned and build a better today and future? And, I have been using technology along with my practice to envision a better today where, my story goes away for our future nurses, and that they can show up and practice, and have the mental and physical capacity to have a long and healthy career at the bedside, if that's what they choose. And that the bedside, the traditional hierarchies, and I'd love to hear the global perspective, but, in the US, right, you can be a bedside nurse, a charge nurse, nurse manager, and then maybe a director of nursing, and then maybe a CNO, right? And I think people need to understand that there is not that narrow path, that you can work for a software company, that you can start your own company and products, and that really the sky's the limit. Or with Nurse Disrupted, I started off with bringing virtual nursing into homeless shelters, and that the community space outside of the four walls of hospitals are absolutely, this is our space. So, let's together help nurses see how powerful their practice is,
Yeah. So Nurse Disrupted, first of all, why did you even call it that?
Yes. So when I was thinking, so this was March of 2020, I launched our first virtual nursing program. I hadn't planned on making a company. I was a nurse executive at Epic, the software company, not the Fortnite one, right? We all know it's the EHR one that I'm talking about in Madison.
Yeah.
But I was volunteering for one of our local homeless shelters when the pandemic was evolving, right? It was January of 2020. I think that we had our first, awareness broadly, and that things started shutting down. So March of 2020, Porchlight Adult Male Shelter, I was talking to their executive director, Carla Tennis, and they have intermittent access to healthcare in the best of times, and they were fully shut down. And I was looking at this utility trailer that the state had given them, and this lamppost that, they plugged it into, and we were talking about their shoestring budget and their volunteer staff. And I was like, I think I can do something with this. At the very same night, I was like, Carla, if we do video nursing, virtual nursing, what do you think of it? And she's like, do it. Just do it. And then that night I told I was an elected official on the Wisconsin Nurses Association, and we were having, COVID emergency response meetings. And it's so wild. Kim Udlis at the time was an associate dean of the School of Nursing for Marian University. And she said, Bree, I have 9 NP students whose practicum sites were just shut down. One of them was like 6 hours away from graduating, and she wasn't going to graduate at the time when we need nurses the most. And she was like, Bree, can virtual nursing be a practicum opportunity? And the bags of my eyes got bigger, and I'm like, I'm already doing this impossible thing. But we were live. Carla said yes on the 23rd of March. We were live by the 25th of March with our first with our first iteration of the virtual nursing platform. And it was for original nurses, including me. So I practiced as a virtual nurse for the first, 2 years of the company, as well as everything else. But then when I thought of what we were doing, and March we launched, April I decided I'm gonna go all in on this company. I cashed out my stock in my retirement, and gave my notice, March, April, and by May, I was all in on Nurse Disrupted, but the name it is from nurses. It is the most trusted profession, created by nurses, nurse-led and founded. It had to be in the forefront. But disrupted is everyone works for disruptive technologies, something that changes the way that everyone does things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my promise that we've disrupted the way care is delivered by nurses, that we have done it, that it was a promise that it wouldn't be more of the same thing, that it would be something that had
Yeah,
disrupted the way that we practice.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome, 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 awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so, and now that you have done this and people have recognized what you have done and they want you to speak all over the place.
And I can't. I mean, I talk to people a lot about this. I have to run my business. And the best thing that I can do for all of us is just knock it out of the park with Nurse Disrupted. So we started off with homeless shelters. We continue to expand, and we continue to expand with academics. 2022, we were asked to come inpatient because virtual nursing was really becoming more accepted. We were getting refined on what worked. But also there's, very large complex solutions. And then there's us, where we were born in, a utility trailer in the back of a church at a homeless shelter, right? We were really good at developing for efficiency. And I was laser focused on return on investment and economics. So speaking, it's funny because I miss every speaking application for like the nursing conferences and whatnot, but I just tell people the best thing that I can do is knock it out of the park for nurses and hospitals and shelters and academics. And then my customers should be speaking. I want,
Uh-huh.
the people that I've been partnering with, where I want them to be empowered to take the work, because I feel like an innovative collaborator and accelerator for the
Yeah,
customers I work with. And then they need to
they can
go and
run with it.
the
Mm-hmm.
work done together. Now, sometime you and I will talk in 10 years. I'd love to write a book and be speaking and all that kind of fun stuff. But, now, although I do wind up speaking, but largely I have to decline because I got to run this business.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
So with all of that, at this point, what would you say you're most proud of?
Mm. Well, I think at this very moment, there's a couple of things. There's one hospital site we went live at, and a nurse said, "Bree, is it crazy how excited I am about this?" And I said, "No, you're supposed to be able to be excited and rewarded by your career, and that we can bring that kind of excitement for nurses back to their profession, and that we can empower them to give feedback and contribute to the innovative process is everything." It gave me goosebumps when that nurse said that. There's a bunch of stories like
Mhm.
that. And that is absolutely on the inpatient side why we're here, to re-inspire nurses, to re-engage them, and to give them an innovative platform to build on. The other side in the community is that insurers, we had our first collaboration with an insurer, and now we're working on a collaboration at the state level, because there's this wild thing happening where there are people who need care so badly. But there are people who need to give care so badly. We could actually produce more nurses in the United States if there were more practicum sites and preceptors available. Sorry, my Mac just did the thumbs up. And suddenly I'm hitting this point of, state Medicaid payers seeing the financial value or having financing for academics to open up practicum sites in homeless shelters, right? You have the NPs now and the undergraduate nurses that get to most of the time also have their first engagement with communities that, with people who are experiencing homelessness. But
Yeah, yeah.
this feels like a culmination of my life's work as well, where it's like, there's a pot of money that needs to be spent. There's people who need to give care,
We
and there's
need it.
people who need to have care, and putting that together. So those two things, the hearing what the nurses, how they're reacting to this, to the work that we do together.
Yeah.
Then, putting this complex solution together that really, makes sense and is mutually beneficial for all three of
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it when we can remember to pat ourselves about in the back.
Yeah, people need to be proud. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been, through the whole thing. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a nurse?
Do it first. It's a great profession. Just go. I think also understanding how powerful the profession is, that if you're considering it,
Yes.
and when you go through nursing school and you go to the bedside, to maintain the understanding of how valuable you are, and
Yes.
your career, see it as, building blocks and learning moments. And it's going to be hard. Oh, also exactly what you're doing, find and build and participate in a community, because you need to be able to tell stories, get mentorship, grow
Yeah.
together, and it's not going to be around the dinner table that these things are going to happen. It's going to be with your nursing community and building that. So I would say, for someone considering nursing, go into it. For our new nurses and our growing nurses, to find your community that you can talk to, and you can get also mentorship to build your career.
Awesome. Awesome. Bree, you've done so much. What do you do to take care of you?
You need to I need to take that time. I went for a walk this morning, and it was this, oh my gosh, I have so many things that I need to do. But that moment of it was an hour, which seems like so much time. It was, however, unplugged, on this beautiful trail in Wisconsin that has like rabbits. And I mean, it just couldn't be more peaceful. There's tons of birds out here, and that time must be taken and protected, even when it seems like there's, 1,000 things that maybe are more important than that. There's been the times where, last year it was like, I can't. And I put that part aside, and my stress level got to the point where, luckily I was able to recognize it. And I do have great mentors around me. I'm able to talk, and I'm able to get things out and get advice. But and we talk about it all the time, right? It's the self-care piece, like whatever it is that you can devote to your self-care. I'll just reinforce that. Like you, as impossible as it seems, there has to be something you find to do for yourself. And it is not selfish.
Yeah.
It is necessary.
Yeah.
You're nodding. So I think you agree with me. What do you do?
Absolutely, I agree with you. Well, you mentioned walk and walking, especially in the morning, outside. If I'm outside, I am good. If I'm outside and walking or gardening, I'm even better.
Yeah.
And if there's water somewhere, I'm very fortunate. I live fairly close to the Long Island Sound, and so I get there almost every day. And so the water is like, I'm pretty much in heaven. But other than that, reading and music, and anything with my hands, creating with my hands, things like crochet or cooking or things like that. Those are things that I love to do and make
Right.
time for. I've learned to make time for. It wasn't always like that. I had to learn to make time for it. And as you said, you have the hour and your mind is crowded with all kinds of things. You have to learn to let that go. Plan
Yeah.
for it so that you don't get that crowding in your head.
Yeah. And I mean, also, Dale, like you recording these stories, and I feel like it's a tipping point for nurses to be able to hear these stories.
Yes.
What you're doing, I think, is so necessary right now, that as new nurses, like, listen to your show, hear these stories being shared, like get inspired. And so I really appreciate your work and what you've done with your career and what you're trying to build. So
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
what you're doing here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, Bree, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for so much for this. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any last words you want to leave us with?
I think the main thing is thank you for putting the power back into our profession, and I'm so excited for us to be empowering our next generation of nurses to really elevate their professions and their vision. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to those of you who are listening, join us next time as we speak to another nurse from anywhere in the world, sharing their stories. Thank you. Bye-bye.